The classic 5 Tomb Raider games can be very difficult. There's no two ways about it. Since today is International Women's Day, I thought it would be a great idea to celebrate some of Lara Croft's greatest achievements ever. Specifically the hardest levels she's survived. Tomb Raider levels can be difficult for a number of reasons. Some are heavy on traps and prey on your responsiveness, while others will inflict punishment on your brain with confusing puzzles and incomprehensible level layouts. And sometimes the levels are simply packed with combat encounters where the odds are not in Lara's favor. Most things in life get easier the more you try, but the levels I think are the most difficult in the series are hard no matter how much you've practiced. These are the 10 levels that will make you throw your controller, make your hairline roll to the back of your head, and make you a legend, if you can complete them. But first, an honorable mention. Temple of the Cat is generally not too difficult, but it has one particular room that must be regarded as the hardest trap to survive in the entire series. I like to call this room the Death Room. It's entirely optional to explore, you can just walk past it, but you know, it's really hard to just leave something like that unexplored. Not as hard as actually exploring it, but still. It's a tiny room with unsettling but unique decorations and stairs that of course turn into a slope when you reach the top of them. As it turns out, Lara dies instantly from the mere touch of the skull-adorned floor beneath it. Very specific positioning and a tricky curved jump is the only way to survive here, but even pulling that off doesn't mean safety yet. If Lara doesn't jump further ahead the second she lands on the platform, a freaking Atlantean will push her off. Yeah, this room is really something else. But anyways, here's the top 10 hardest Tomb Raider levels of all time. Floating Islands is, right from the get-go, a bit of an overwhelming task to have at hand. The level consists of a number of, well, floating islands that just hang in the middle of infinite space, so if Lara falls or doesn't nail her jumps, it's over. Due to the level's otherworldly, almost abstract appearance, it's much harder to estimate distances between platforms here. The main reason why Floating Islands made this list, however, are the brutally difficult enemies of the level. The Guardians of the Dragon's Lair come in 2 different variants. The first kind approaches Lara from the air before it lands and goes after her with its massive sword. While very intimidating, this variant is somewhat easy to deal with as they are slow to make their entrance and can't be taken out from a distance. The other variant is a different story. They are much more aggressive and can instantly kill Lara if she gets too close to them. Back when I was a kid and didn't necessarily play as conservatively as I do nowadays, I would arrive at Floating Islands horribly under-equipped, which these bastards would exploit the hell out of. Lara needs to be a one-woman army to stand a chance here because dual pistols just won't cut it. Temple Ruins is a tough level, but the hard parts come in short, intense bursts as opposed to most other levels on this list, which are more consistently difficult. Battling the Shiva statues is always an uphill struggle, but even worse are the numerous traps in the level. Especially the ones where Lara suddenly finds herself locked inside dark, so-called spike rooms. In one of them, she needs to pull a switch right next to a huge spike wall, then sprint all the way to the other side of the room, quickly pick up a key, and then make a rapid exit. In a different spike room, a spike ceiling will be lowering as soon as Lara enters, and her only way out is to pull 2 switches that will open a hatch in the floor. Because of how fast you need to do this and how stressed you probably are, it's easy to hit the second switch at a wrong angle, which most certainly will mean death. Both of these spike rooms require pitch-perfect execution to clear undamaged, let alone survive. And besides those, Temple Ruins has so many venomous cobras, backstabbing monkeys, piranhas, random collapsing ceilings, difficult jumps, boulders, poison darts, blades, and whatever else you can think of that there's no way it couldn't be considered as one of the hardest Tomb Raider levels of all time. Tomb Raider Chronicles is by no means a difficult game, but it certainly shows its teeth in the aptly titled final level of the game, Red Alert. It's a level that I feel is quite underrated as it gets overshadowed by its infamous buggy legacy. There's a lot of heart and soul in it though, and some serious creativity went into its challenge design. This is a pretty damn difficult level. It doesn't make it any easier that you can't save your game whenever you'd like to out of fear of the potential game-breaking save game bugs, but even if I ignore all that for a moment, this level is still really hard. First of all, Lara doesn't have her dual pistols as a backup here, so there's a legitimate risk of running out of ammo. I also find the laser-trapped corridor difficult because of tricky depth perception. The level's cyborgs are the toughest nuts to crack here though. They can't be killed the conventional way, so the encounters against them instead play like difficult puzzles. The second one is particularly hard as Lara not only needs to outrun it, but she must do so while also having a machine-gunning helicopter on her ass. She also needs to stay far ahead of the cyborg so she can trap it inside a gas chamber, because if she doesn't, she's gonna be SOL. And you know what that means. Crash Site is a perfect example of a level that's difficult because of its combat encounters. Not that it's a slouch in other aspects of difficulty, but the combat is definitely where it's at. How does fighting a bunch of raptors in total darkness sound to you? Does it sound fun? I don't think so. I think it sounds like a nightmare. Raptors just keep appearing out of nowhere in the darkness, which is terrifying. The size of the room is a big problem as you need much more space to properly dodge and stay away from the aggressive raptors that kill Lara in just a few vicious bites. This is the kind of challenge that will make you shiver. Equally difficult is the level's T-Rex boss fight. This fight begins once Lara has reached the deepest part of its cave, which means that she's as far away from the exit as possible when it appears from out of nowhere. This T-Rex is even more aggressive and resilient than the ones in the previous two games. And since Lara is out in the open when it shows up with no place to hide nearby, this battle is so much harder. Underneath the Sphinx is, in my opinion, the Last Revelation's hardest level. First and foremost, it's really difficult to figure out, and all there really is to go by is a mysterious map next to a corpse, but who knows how to read that? There are 3 buttons on a wall with markings that also appear on the map, but since the map doesn't help you determine which buttons to push, you might as well just try and push them in random order to see what happens. Well, the level punishes you with a sadistic blade maze if you don't solve this puzzle the way it wants you to. This maze is unforgiving and you don't even get rewarded for surviving it. Hell, you're not even compensated for the health you undoubtedly just lost inside it. And even the jump back from it is difficult. It's really just one big miserable experience. What you actually need to do is use the night vision mode on Lara's binoculars to find the secret button combinations in the dark, but how were we supposed to know that when we are never told they have a night vision mode? Pushing the correct buttons in the correct order opens different parts of the level from which Lara must retrieve certain stones. One of these stones is hidden at the end of a brutally difficult underwater maze. I think this level hates us. Kayaking is a wonderful leisurely activity that can be enjoyed in gorgeous surroundings by the entire family. However, when kayaking, there are certain precautions one must always take to avoid potentially fatal encounters. One must always, and I repeat, always stay away from waterfalls. Paddling down a waterfall can result in a fatal drop. Waterfalls are not suited for kayaking. It's also important to always, and I repeat, always stay away from trails marked by red tape. Red tape indicates danger and that there might be spikes and/or blades on these particular trails. Red tape trails are not suited for kayaking. Finally, sinkholes must always, and I repeat, always be avoided at all costs. Paddling into a sinkhole will most certainly result in a tragic accident. Sinkholes are not suited for kayaking. Well, isn't all that just great when you have about 10% control of your stupid kayak? Madubu Gorge is intense. It perfectly simulates the struggle against nature where you only have very little control of your fate. The rapids want to take you to all those places your parents have told you not to go to, and desperately trying to stop it from doing so will physically wear you down. Even outside the kayak, Marubu Gorge raises hell on you. It's one big thrill ride, and it's definitely one of the hardest Tomb Raider levels of all time. The name Lutz Gate alone makes even the most well-versed Tomb Raider player sweat. This level is hard on PC, but it's unreasonably hard on PlayStation. Not being able to save your game whenever you want to, nor being able to adjust the game's brightness is not ideal when you have to find your way through a dark underwater maze. Well, actually, it's technically not a maze. I don't know what else to call it, but it's technically more like a sort of hub from which various tunnels branch out. But it doesn't matter what it is anyways, because the point is it's easy to get lost here. Which obviously is no fun when Lara's underwater breath meter is rapidly depleting and there's a lot of ground to cover. A UPV can get Lara faster from point A to B, but the vehicle easily gets stuck and can be hard to maneuver. And on top of all that, there are also crocodiles and scuba divers shooting harpoons at you, so yeah, there's lots of fun to be had here. Unlike most other Tomb Raider fans, I actually like Lutz Gate, but even I dread this part of the level. What's interesting is that besides this underwater part, I don't think Lutz Gate is that hard. Sure, there is that jump at the top of the Egyptian room, that annoying frogman puzzle for a secret, and the crazy sewer traps towards the end, but I'd still argue that Lutz Gate has its infamous reputation solely for the unforgiving underwater part. Which, to be fair, might be the single hardest challenge in all of the games. RX Tech Mines is difficult, and one of the reasons why is its fear-inducing atmosphere. There's just something about these dark, mutant-infested mines that makes me want to go play Cooler World or something else instead. But that's not the main reason why I think RX Tech Mines is the third hardest Tomb Raider level of all time. The level's minecart rides are frustrating and unforgiving. They require absolute handbrake mastery. Using the handbrake too soon will make you lose momentum for jumps, which will result in death, and using the handbrake too late can result in, well, also death. But these roller coasters of doom are not the main reason why I think RX Tech Mines is the third hardest Tomb Raider level of all time either. This level is hard, man. No, the underground lake is the main reason why. In Antarctica, Lara dies from hypothermia for staying in the freezing cold waters for more than 10 seconds. The problem is, in order to reach the lost city of Tinos, which is why she's in these miserable mines in the first place, Lara must swim through a massive underground lake and its dark tunnels. The only way to survive this is to make small bursts of progress, interrupted by short breaks whenever and wherever possible, where Lara can cool off? Well, the opposite, I guess. Sometimes she'll be cutting it so close that if you just fumble the controls a little bit when trying to climb out of the water, Lara will die. The Great Pyramid, the Great Wall, Temple of Puna, and Willard's Lair are all a breed of Tomb Raider levels that are relentless with the amount of traps they put you through. Temple of Xi'an is their daddy, and daddy is on steroids. From start to finish, Temple of Xi'an puts you through hell, and the level basically feels like one big gauntlet. And since the level is like 1 hour long, that's a pretty long gauntlet that for sure will leave you exhausted. Every type of challenge you've ever faced in Tomb Raider is present here, but in a tougher version. Instead of just having to get the timing right for one slope jump, Temple of Xi'an wants you to string several of them together. And instead of just having to deal with one jump pad, Temple of Xi'an forces you to bounce between 4 of them. There's never a point in the level where it takes it down a notch. It just constantly throws everything in your way. The best way to describe Temple of Xi'an is as a sort of Tomb Raider graduation ritual. This is where you can prove to yourself that you master the game. All you need is skill, and that's the best type of difficulty. Ultimately, Temple of Xi'an is fun to play in spite of its difficulty, or perhaps even because of it, but number 1 on this list is not. Lost City of Tinnos is, in my opinion, the hardest Tomb Raider level of all time. Not only is it very difficult, but it's also very long and it's full of wasps. The level's difficulty feels abusive and breeds frustration as opposed to how Temple of Xi'an thrills you. The ever-spawning wasps will follow Lara everywhere and make playing the level an even more miserable experience. Unless you actually take the time to kill each and every one of them as they spawn from their nest. But that's tedious as hell, so either way, these wasps will take a toll on your mental health. The level also has a puzzle that I don't think anyone has ever been able to make any sense out of. Supposedly, it has something to do with the food chain, but I don't get it. Then there are the scary mutants, which are ridiculously overpowered and dangerous. I'm sure these guys are the reason why Tomb Raider 3 introduced a rocket launcher. If you haven't been conserving your rockets, prepare for the worst time ever. The main event of the level are the 4 elemental trials based on fire, earth, air and water, which Lara must complete for 4 oceanic masks. The fire trial feels like the ultimate version of somewhat similar fire trials of past levels. If you feel like a badass, you can go ahead and pick up the large medipack on the final pillar before it catches on fire, but you need to be spot on. Right after this, there's another large medipack, but this one is definitely not possible to pick up. The trial gets even worse in the next room, where you need to master some truly awkward maneuvering to survive, only to be punished one final time right before the mask. The earth trial is a slog to get through with mud, wasps and a collapsing cave. The air trial is a maze, which is always frustrating, but at least the wind in Lara's hair shows the way. Finally, the water trial, which is the worst one, is just more punishing dark underwater Tomb Raider 3 gameplay. This time with blades everywhere. Lost City of Tinnos also has Tomb Raider 3's final secret, which requires a flawless timed run to grab. It just so happens that this is also the series' hardest secret. Lara, you are awesome, and if you've completed these 10 levels as well, then you are pretty awesome too. Which levels do you think are the hardest in the series? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Take care.